Home sellers, what if I told you that the places where most for sale by owner sellers list their homes, like Zillow and Craigslist and other for sale by owner sites, actually attract the least qualified buyers and the most scammers and lowballers and 6% agents? We've sold over 2,500 homes, roughly 50 times more than the average realtor. And today I'm going to show you why most for sale by owner sellers struggle and why the few who do succeed leave so much money on the table. How to flip the entire system in your favor without paying 6%. This is how we do it. So stick around and we'll show you how for sale by owner sellers can get maximum exposure, maximum control, and maximum results, all without the BS. All right, here we go. Welcome to Talking Realty, the podcast for home sellers who want to make more money, save time, and avoid headaches. I'm Glenn Whitten, realtor and founder of the Ohio Property Group, where we do the same things as traditional realtors, but instead of charging 6%, we charge a low, flat fee. So you keep a lot more money and you still get better results. Check out the free seller tools at talkingrealty.com. And if you love the show, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get to it. So for the past few years, I spend probably an inordinate amount of time on Zillow and other for sale by owner sites, engaging for sale by owner sellers for a couple of reasons. One is it's a good way to find possible clients, but more importantly, these places give me a chance to talk to real live sellers who are in the throes of the process. And I learn a lot, both about what's going on in the market and especially in individual pockets in the counties, but also what are sellers facing? What's new? What's interesting? What's working? Something I see over and over and over is the same type of story from sellers. They get tons of calls and almost no real buyers. The majority of who they hear from, whether it be calls or texts, are almost always scammers. They're wannabe investors making ridiculous offers about, oh, I'll just take over your payment, or I'll give you $1 down and $1 a day forever, or something like that. Or the bulk of them are, you guessed it, realtors pretending to have buyers. So they want to do the old preview. So I'll go through some of those things here in a minute. But the point is, these listings that are on these for sale by owner sites are not lacking for attention. They're getting tons of attention. They were just lacking buyers, real buyers who wanted to pay money. Like that was the number one frustration I get every time I do this. And I do it, sadly, a few times a year. I'll just take a couple of weeks and I'll just deep dive all these. So that's where all of this came from. Before we get too far, I want to say that selling for sale by owner is not just a lost cause. I know you see a lot of jokes and memes about, realtors making fun of people who try to sell for sale by owner. Frankly, it's insulting and it's condescending and it's pretty arrogant, to be real. There are plenty of people who sell by owner without a realtor and have no trouble. A big chunk of my audience is people who don't want to engage a realtor. That's why they listen. That's why they learn. That's why they get good at what they do. It's the DIY champion culture. And I, for one, am a huge fan. These sellers, when you sell by owner, it is pretty clear what you're after. Number one, you're trying to avoid paying a 6% commission to an agent who may or may not bring any value to the entire process. So I get that one. But the other thing that we find that most sellers want, besides saving the money, is they want control over the process. Many times a traditional agent will roll in, and I don't care if they did one deal 4 years ago, they're now the Western Hemisphere's foremost expert on real estate on your block. And just they're going to push these sellers out of the way in many cases and try to take over. Well, we find, even as experienced as we are, our sellers always have something to bring to the party. And the more engaged they are, the more successful they are, without fail. So that's what sellers want. And they feel like they can only get that by going down the for sale by owner avenue. So the problem with that is, where do you advertise your for sale by owner? Stick a sign in the yard, that's no problem. And that will take care of anybody who's local. But we know from experience that the vast majority, if not almost the entire majority, finds properties. When we survey sellers, or when realtors get surveys out, one of the questions they always ask is, hey, how did you find the house that you bought? And in almost every case, they found it on the web. Okay, so you got your sign, and now you're looking for, where can I put this property so that as many buyers as possible can see it? And what we find is most of them go to Craigslist, go to Facebook Marketplace, or they go to some for sale by owner website that is a branded, here, put your listing here. And now you've got a place to, send buyers. or they go to the for sale by owner section of Zillow. Well, there's a bit of a problem with that. I mean, the Zillow for sale by owner section, in case you haven't looked lately, is essentially the back room. It is way off the beaten path, and there are no signs, and you probably can't get there from here. It's pretty hard to find. You know who's really good at finding it though? Realtors. Realtors can find those for sale by owner sections because that's where they get a lot of their leads. The problem with those sections, those websites I mentioned and Facebook marketplaces and things like that, is that there are some buyers on there, but not all buyers are on there. And that in itself is a problem. That crowd is mostly made up of 6% agents who are prospecting, lowball investors, tire kickers, scammers, previewers, nosy neighbors, things like that. That's your traffic right there. And you already know this. If you've tried to sell this way, you already know this because those are the calls you're getting. And it becomes maddening. When I first engage for sale by owners, I reveal who I am up front. Hi, I'm Glenn Whitney from the Ohio Property Group. I am a realtor, but I'm not trying to get your listing. Hey, I just want to talk to you about the process. Shockingly, many people are like, listen, you can't have my deed for a down payment. No, you can't move your family in while you work out the details of your financing. No, it's not for rent. I'm not interested in your lowball offer, blah, blah. They just get all their disclaimers out right away. I just have to let them blow off that steam and then they're ready to talk many times. But that's how bad it's gotten is they have to lead off every call with the disclaimers of who I won't deal with, which is obviously a sign that that's who they're hearing from. And the problem with that is while you're dealing with all those things, other people on other places are selling to real buyers and you're missing out because those buyers are not finding your listing. Hey folks, almost every seller I know has at least a few questions about the process, which is why we offer a totally free, no obligation, one-on-one strategy call for anyone with a property to sell in Ohio. On that call, we're going to help you plan your listing launch. We're going to nail down your price. We're going to make sure you're ready for offers and inspections and appraisals and hopefully help you get a bidding war off the ground. Check the show notes, the YouTube comments, or just head over to talkingrealty.com and book your free call right now. Seriously, hit pause, go do it now, and I'll talk to you soon. Let's get you on the right track. All right, back to the show. Okay, so why don't buyers go to those websites? And I'm not saying that no buyers ever go to those websites and they never work. That's not true. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the majority of buyers don't go to those sites that I mentioned. And the real reason is because just like you're seeing who's on those sites from a buyer perspective or a lack of buyer perspective, who's calling you, who's texting you, who's bugging you, buyers also have their own bag of doubts about those sites. They feel like there's a lot of scammers going on, and they feel like there's some real legitimate problems with trying to fish for a house on one of those sites. What buyers want more than anything is selection, and they want safety, they want legitimacy, they want the entire package, and they want to know that it's legitimate before they waste any time engaging. Because the last thing they want is to get duped by somebody or to, all of a sudden they've got somebody crawling up their tailpipe trying to sell them a timeshare or who knows what's happening. There are a lot of people who will put for sale by owners on these websites because they're not verified. They're just not. Long story, but buyers already know if they've been down this road that there's a reasonable chance that if they reach out about this property, it's not going to be for sale. So they're using it as bait to build their buyer list. They're going to try to sell you some off-market stuff. It's not what they signed on for. Well, they know that if they go to realtor.com, there's at least a minimum level of verification that happens. One, we know that the legitimate seller is selling. Number two, there's a professional involved in the process. So we've got a few layers of stability that come with shopping on realtor.com or Redfin or homes.com, brokerage sites. All of these places, they use agents because only agents can access them. And that gives buyers a certain peace of mind. So real buyers, as a rule, almost never browse FSBO sites, just in case they're going to miss that one listing. But I'm telling you, it is a tiny fraction of the entire buyer market. And we know this because we track this. So we can see all these things. But if you're a buyer, why would you go on those sites? Yes, you might find a deal, but the vast majority of the legitimate property inventory is not on these sites. So you wouldn't, for example, go to Craigslist, hopefully, and try to buy a precious artwork or a Babe Ruth rookie card or an engagement ring. Sure, you can do it, but there's a pretty good chance that it's not going to go as planned. But as I mentioned, some for sale by owner sellers are successful on those sites, right? They know how to weed people out, they know how to draw in the right sorts of buyers, but they are the exception. Like it or not, they are the exception. And in my opinion, well, and I think I can prove this mathematically, they're leaving money on the table. So even if you do successfully go and save the commission, I will almost wager you that because you didn't have maximum exposure and you weren't engaging the entire buyer market, which is probably 100, 500 times what you're going to see on the for sale by owner sites, that smaller pool of buyers is going to bring you fewer offers and finally, in the end, less money. Truth number 6, more buyers equals more showings equals more money for you in the end. Say, for example, you have an auction with terrible weather and only 1 or 2 bidders show up. Well, how's that day going to go? Versus a beautiful sunny day, maybe it's a holiday and there's nothing else going on, and you've got a food truck and music and all kinds of stuff. You get a huge crowd. Now, people who weren't even thinking about buying are raising their hand and getting caught up in the frenzy, and all of a sudden the prices go up. So when the buyer pool goes up, prices go up and sales get speedier. And in order to reach the biggest number of buyers, you need to be on the sites where almost all buyers hang out. So you don't want to pay 6%, but how do you get on this massive highway, this information buyer super highway called the multiple listing service? Well, that is the game changer. For many, 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 many years, if you wanted to get on the MLS, which then feeds you to Redfin and Realtor.com and the agent side of Zillow, not the back room for sale by owner side of Zillow, you had to sign on with a realtor for 6 months. You had to agree to pay them 6% at closing. You had to agree to include in there a buyer agent. It was just a big mess. This is why you're not doing it, is because you think it stinks. And you're right. We know you can get on the MLS and not go through all of that stuff. But back to my case for the MLS. This is the property superhighway. The only people shopping on the MLS and on all those public buyer websites are, drumroll please, legitimate buyers. Those buyers and agents know that by virtue of the fact that you're in the MLS and that you're on Realtor.com and these other public realtor-fed sites, that you now are open for business, that they can help their buyers find your property. And guess what they won't do? Try to recruit your listing. At least they shouldn't if they want to keep their license. Because once you're listed in the MLS, even if it's MLS only, like you just pay a flat fee and get on the MLS, that agent is barred from trying to shake you loose to get you to list with them. Doesn't mean they won't do it. I mean, people do illegal stuff all the time, but that should tell you something about that agent. If you're listing the MLS and they're coming to you trying to get you to list with them, you should immediately disqualify them based on that fact alone, because one of the first things they teach you as a realtor is don't chase other people's listings. It's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. Anyway, but the cool thing about the MLS is it's just like a clearinghouse. If you're an MLS agent and you've got buyers, that's where you shop for the stuff to send them. That's how you know all the information that's not on the public websites. And if you're a buyer, you know that going to Realtor.com and Redfin and Homes.com, those are legitimate properties. They're really for sale. It's not a scam. It's not a rent to own thing. These listings are vetted. The search criteria are hyper specific. If you knew, well, you probably do, but when we go to put a property in the MLS, there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of information that we have to put it in there. You're not going to get that on Craigslist. I can't go in and search for 3-car garages only. But on all the realtor driven sites, you've got, especially if you're at the MLS level, you've got crazy amounts of data that you can plug in to pull back only the perfect matching properties. Saves you a lot of time and a lot of wasted driving around looking at stuff. Automatic syndication. You get into the MLS, you are automatically, within usually less than a couple of hours, but no more than 24 hours, your listing is now, whoo, it's whooshed everywhere, hundreds and hundreds of sites, because the MLSs all have these syndication agreements with all these other websites. Everything is standardized. The data is homogenized so that it matches from site to site and listing to listing, and alerts are built right in. So as a buyer, if you're serious, you're going to be on these websites, you're going to be setting up, send me everything in this zip code or this school district with this many bedrooms and this many square feet from this price to this price, anything listed in the last 7 days, 3 hours, whatever. All of that happens automatically. You don't get that from these other sites. So that's why you shouldn't be on them and buyers don't hang out on them. So you're mingling at the wrong cocktail party. So you need to come over to the big party where all the lights are flashing. We got a rager going on over here at the MLS level. Home sellers, this episode of Talking Realty is brought to you by our friends at Associates Title. This team is shaking things up by focusing on what truly matters, putting you, the customer, first. Whether you're buying or selling or investing, whether you're for sale by owner, whether you're working with a realtor, doesn't matter. They've got your back with incredible cost savings and the latest technology to streamline the process. Their secure online portal keeps everyone in the loop, from buyers and sellers to lenders to agents, all while keeping your data safe and communication crystal clear. If you're getting ready to make a move, don't underestimate the importance of having a great title company in your corner. Check them out today at associatestitleinc.com or call my friend Ryan Phillips at 614-419-2418. Remember, they're not just in Ohio, they're in a lot of states. So give them a call, but do not leave your title company choice to chance. And definitely don't let the buyer or their agent make that choice for you. All right, back to the show. So if you're trying to sell a home, this is what I don't understand. You're trying to sell a home. You need to get in front of many, many, many buyers, as many as possible. The MLS is the most guaranteed short path to get there. So I don't understand why people would not list on the MLS. And that's the crazy thing. I asked these home sellers, would you like to get the property on the MLS? Oh, no, 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 no. Well, would you pay an agent if they brought you a buyer? Oh, yeah, I'd pay an agent. So you're willing to pay some agent from a tiny pool of agents who are brave enough to bring their buyer to a for sale by owner, which is not the norm. Most agents treat for sale by owners like poison. But anyway, I don't understand, if you're trying to sell a home, why you wouldn't be in the MLS. It is, like I said, is the shortest path to the hugest pool of buyers out there. The real reason is the people who don't go into the MLS, in almost every case when I talk to them, is because they don't want to pay a giant commission to a realtor and they don't want to give up all the control. That's why. Control, money. Those are the two reasons. Dad always said, if people ask why, the answer is almost always money. So here's the thing. Most sellers believe that they either have to go purely for sale by owner and then find these sketchy websites to get on, or they have to pay 6% to a realtor and lock in for 6 months, whether it's any good or not, whether the realtor knows what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reality, that is a very false binary, that it's not an either or. All right. This is where sellers get boxed in and why so many of them end up paying 6%. Anyway, that's the crazy part. I'll keep track of all. I have literally thousands of these people tracked in a spreadsheet. And when I monitor what happens, because I do, because I'm a weirdo, I'll go back and look and see that on average, 11 to 17 days into the for sale by owner process on those websites, they end up breaking down and paying 6% to some realtor. So they're going to do it anyway. So I don't understand it. Like, I get that you want to try this FSBO route first, and then, okay, if that doesn't work, we'll go. I mean, if this is you, raise your hand. It's not everybody, but it's a whole lot of people. And I know that because, like I said, I've spent an inordinate amount of time studying this. But sellers who get boxed in and then end up paying 6%, they've missed the fact that there is a third path. Like, there is a third alternative. And frankly, it's, in my opinion, the only alternative. And that is, you approach one of us here in the flat fee world. This is not a pitch. I mean, it is kind of, but not really. My point is, you have another choice. So let's say you decide that you want to stay for sale by owner, but you want the massive marketing power of the MLS. Great. Just go pick up one of our DIY. It's $297 anywhere in Ohio. And my team and I will put you on the right MLS and then automatically swing you out to 200 some websites. And then every buyer, every agent, everybody who wants to know anything about your house, we will send them to you. It's as simple as that. $297, one time, no muss, no fuss. That's it. I can make sure that your property is continuously presented to the entire pool of potential buyers for your product. Let's say you're selling shoes or a computer. How do you advertise it? Well, you run ads on TV or on the web or whatever, and you pay for a 60-second ad or a 30-second ad, or you pay for a banner post somewhere. Well, what if I could give you a rolling 24-hour, 7-day-a-week ad that was guaranteed to show up in front of anybody who was looking for something like you have? Because that's exactly what the MLS does. That's what it does. Those sites are there 24/7. And I can prove to you thousands and thousands of buyers every day combing through my listings. They run a search, boop, there it is, it pops up. If you run a search and that property matches, it shows up. It just shows up. And they're not ranked by who paid the most. No, they're just there. And then buyers comb through them and decide which one they want to see. That's what we do. $297, put you in the MLS. And there are other companies out there doing this if you're not in Ohio. There are other companies doing it in Ohio, but you wouldn't want to go there. Let's stay right here with old Glenn. But anyhow, you get all that exposure and you get it for one flat fee. You don't ever have to pay anything else. Nobody ever is going to come to you and say, oh, well, it's been a month. We need you to pay again. Keep your ad running. No, it's the most targeted one-stop shop for marketing a home I've ever seen in my entire life, or any other product for that matter. So you're going to get all this exposure. You're going to get real buyers. You're going to get agents who are not trying to list your property, but are actually trying to sell it, because they're not going to approach you unless they have a real buyer. We're going to filter out the scammers, because they're going to assume you've got a gatekeeper involved, because they can't tell. When they look at a realtor.com listing, it doesn't say, oh, this is limited service, so you can talk directly to the seller. And I know that causes some pain to my sellers, a few of them, because they want their name. Well, if I could put your name out there, I would, but they banned that practice about 5 or 6 years ago. We used to do it. It'd say my name, and then right in the description, it would say, call Bill Jones at blah, 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 if you want to hear about this listing. Well, the realtor community decided in their infinite wisdom that was a bad idea. So it became illegal for me to do that about 5 years ago. So now we just take all the leads that come in and we match them to our seller 7 days a week, and we send them out. And then we send a little text that says, hey, I just sent you some leads. And then they go. Anyway, but the scammers know that there's someone else involved. They can't come straight to you and try to sell you their snake oil. And the seller contact, your contact in this case with the DIY option, stays right in front. So when you do go in the MLS, if you're an agent, the first thing you're going to see in the description that is private, that they're called the agent to agent remarks, is call Bill Jones at such and such, or here's his email. If you want to make an offer, see a showing. If you want to, you can go into showing time and set it up just like they could any other listing. So you got all the advantages of being with a realtor. You just don't have the giant commission. And the best part is no fees at closing, right? So whatever it is you're selling, if it's a house or it's a lot, if it's multifamily, whatever it is, we have an option for you that fits into that package so that you pay one fee and you've got all the exposure you will ever possibly need. And here's the other thing. If you want more help, we have it. I won't get into it here, but you can go to our website, check our show notes, any of that stuff. If you want full service, we do that too. Also a low flat fee. I don't believe in percentages because honestly, it doesn't cost any more to sell $1 million house than a $10,000 lot. It's all the same work to me. So this whole charge you more because your house is worth more, I don't get it, but whatever. The point is to kind of put this in perspective is that for sale by owner in and of itself is not a problem. The problem is the way most of them are marketed, right? You can have the greatest for sale by owner listing on the planet, but if very few people know about it, you're not going to get top market value for it. The platforms are built with flaws, right? They're not in front of everybody. There's no one central clearinghouse for sale by owner listings. So that's why we created our DIY flat fee option. $300, bam. We give you the same advantages marketing wise that you'd have if you paid 6% to a realtor. You'd have the same marketing, you get marketed right alongside of them. But those other platforms attract the wrong people, and the right people are avoiding them. MLS has the opposite problem. We're attracting the right buyers and we're weeding out the wrong buyers. So an MLS only listing can supercharge your for sale by owner approach. What you need is access. You need protection. You need strategy. So what I would do is get on my notes in my show notes and book a call. It's free if you're in Ohio, and I will walk you through the process. Whether you go with us or not, I don't care. I mean, I do care, but whether you go with us or not, I'm still going to give you the help. I'm still going to point you in the right direction, because at the end of the day, you don't have to abandon your for sale by owner approach. What you need, though, is the marketing supercharger that is the MLS. And you can get it without signing a deal with the devil, i.e., a 6% 6-month listing. And with that, I'll let you get back to your day. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you learned a little something or maybe had a little bit of fun. The Talking Realty podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Property Group, a family-owned company where we sell homes for a low, flat fee. If you've got a question, you've got a guest or a topic that you'd like to see in a future episode, I would love to hear from you. Just head to talkingrealty.com and say hello. Until next time, keep making smart moves in your real estate journey. For the Ohio Property Group, this is Glenn Whitten signing off. And remember, you can sell it. We can help.